You know that old song they play in all the movies when the clock strikes 12 on December 30th, marking the start of the new year? This one.
Should old acquaintance be forgot for old lang syne, for old lang syne, my jo, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness here. For all the lang syne.
Well, that song was first written as a poem in 1788 by a Scottish man named Robert Burns. It has since been a part of a long-standing tradition to be sung to bid farewell to the old year, and by extension, it's often heard at funerals, graduations, and other endings or occasions of the sort. As the holidays are soon approaching and my connection to the song quite prominent, I thought we could talk about it together. So hello and welcome to the Stories of Northern Life from the Sault Ste Marie Museum. Robert Burns, also known as Robbie Burns, was a Scottish poet and lyricist. He is widely regarded as the national poet of Scotland, and is celebrated worldwide, which we'll get to the celebration more soon. He was born on the 25th of January, 1759, remember that date, in Alloway in the southwest coast of Scotland. He was born in a house built by his father, now the Burns Cottage Museum, where he lived until he was 7 years old. He was the eldest of 7 children and grew up in hardship and poverty. So his education was irregular, but his father taught him and his siblings many skills like reading and writing. They were farmers, and Burns worked on farms for a large part of his life. He continued to read and use folk stories and common tales to inspire his work of writing. He began to write poetry in his little time off from the farms and the hard labor-intensive work that he did. Robert continued to read and use folk stories and common tales to inspire his work. But his greatest inspiration was woman. He was quite a womanizer and had many love affairs throughout his life. To make money, in efforts to make a big change in his life, his friends suggested he publish his poetry. And so he did. On the 31st of July, 1786, John Wilson published the volume of works by Robert Burns, poem chiefly in the Scottish dialect, known as the Kilmarnock volume. It sold for 3 shillings and contained much of his best writing. The success of his work was immediate and was known very quickly across the country. His work touched the masses with his commoner perspective and language. Now, why are we talking about this old character in Scottish history? Well, he is such a loved icon that his honor and poetry is celebrated around the anniversary of his birthday. Remember the date? January 25th he was born, and in any city where there is at least a small Scottish community, that weekend is filled from Friday to Saturday with different Burns nights and ceilidhs. The Sault being one of those cities. I talked with Cathrine Macleod, the owner of the Macleod Highland Dance Studio, and has been hosting Burns Nights since 1998. About Burns Nights. So here's that conversation. I thought I'd bring on Cathrine Macleod, owner of the Macleod Highland Dance Studio, to talk about the annual Burns Night dinner that she hosts. Cathrine has been on the podcast before, sharing her story in the Macleod Highland Dance Studio story, and she's also my mom. So thanks for coming on and chatting about Burns Night. So first I want to know, what is always included in a Burns Night celebration? If it's not there, it's not a Burns Night.
The main thing is the address to the haggis. So this is a poem that Robert Burns wrote about the haggis, and the haggis is the traditional meal of the commoner, and it was everything that was left over, stuffed together with some oats and spices, and it was a very hearty meal. So basically, it was stuffed traditionally, not now, in the sheep's stomach, and it was boiled, and it would come out as this hearty, hot, gigantic sausage sort of looking meal, and you just slice it open and you'd eat from there. It was very hearty, and it was, something that, because they used every aspect, so the liver and the heart and all those ingredients were included along with spices and oatmeals. So yeah, so it was a very hearty meal. So it was a way to celebrate the haggis by writing a poem. He wrote poems about everything. So this was the ode to the haggis, or the address to the haggis as it's called. So this is traditional, and someone speaks about it, goes through what the poem is, and then at one point they're slicing it open and compares it to Italian meals and French ragu, and how it's much better than. So it's quite, and if you have the character that's doing the address, it can be very funny and very hilarious. We've had a number of amazing people that have done it over the years for us. So it's fun. So that's one of the basics of the Burns night. And also the Selkirk Grace is always said as well before dinner. However, the Selkirk Grace was not written by Burns, although it was around before that, but he kind of made it famous. So you see it in a lot of his verses. So he popularized it. At least that's my understanding. Yeah, so Selkirk Grace is some hae meat and canna eat, and some hae meat and they wanna, but we have meat and we can eat, and pray the Lord be thanked. So along those lines.
Yep. Sounds about right. That makes sense, because what I read about Burns is that he read a lot and very up with his literature, and that makes sense that he used that influence to then create his own work and
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but he spoke in the common language, so he wasn't as we call highfalutin. He didn't use, his station in life and write elegant poetry. He wrote poetry that could be elegant, but it was more towards what the common person would have envisioned in his life. And he wrote a lot of love poems, so he was quite the womanizer. So a lot of it is like, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. That's one of his that's very popular. So he wrote beautifully, but it was of the language of the commoner at the time. So it made it more popular because everybody could understand it.
Right. Another address, I guess, was the address to the lassies, or the toast to the lassie.
So a gentleman would toast the women in their life. And it's supposed to be like humorous in nature, and then the ladies would reply back in a humorous fashion. So yes, and there's always toasts before and after. There's toasts all the way along in this. Yeah. So that's another popular aspect of our addresses. Now, not everybody does it. We did it for years because we thought, I had a couple that were really good at, they really played off each other naturally. So it was really great to have them involved. And then just the past few years, we've just made a very light little 4-line little verse back and forth, just to make it a little bit faster, because I haven't had the same couple that have been around doing that for years. So I kind of did a smaller version of that sort of address.
Right. Is that something Robbie Burns wrote, or is that something just played off of like his inspiration type thing?
Those would just have been played off, because I think a lot of them would, like, my understanding of how his life was, they'd be at a pub and then he'd be reciting and other things would happen. So I think that's sort of where, and the humor and his love of the lassies, the women. Yeah. Another aspect that we normally don't do, but is the recitation of his poetry. So he has books, like the books are huge of all his poems. Some are very tiny and some are, I think he's got one at something like the Ode to a Field Mouse or something like that. So like there's quite the variety. Don't quote me on that one. I'd have to go through the book, and I thought I had it handy up here, but I don't see it. But yeah, there's lots of those are the main aspects that have to be at in some form of having some of his poetry. So we use Auld Lang Syne. Because of course he wrote that. So we usually have a dance to it. The dancers perform to it. If I have singers, sometimes they perform along with the dancers we've done over the years, or just in their own little sets. So we try and make it part of music and dance of Scotland, along with the food.
For sure. That's awesome.
And then the traditional dinner for a Burns night is roast beef and haggis on the side, and mashed potatoes and gravy, and that's sort of the modern version of a dinner. Cock-a-leekie soup is another aspect. That, like a leek soup, that is also used quite often as part of the traditional meal.
Yep. So when was the first time that you participated in a Burns night?
Oh, I was a kid. Well, probably a young teenager, I would say. We used to do dance for the Legion in Sault Ste. Marie. So we would, they had a Burns night that had been going on for a long time, and we would come up and do performances, and the variety of pipe bands in the Sioux would perform, and then they'd have a dance. So that was what the Legion always did. So we got to be part of that celebration for years. So it was always exciting for us because it was a big show. We get to, we'd have a couple sets, and we do lots of new choreographies and fun things. So I'd say, so I was a teenager, so probably late 70s, mid 70s, we probably started doing that. And we still do it today.
Yep.
We still have the dancers going out every year. We get invited back. Sometimes the Scottish country dancers are there as well, performing. And I've got the studio in Kingston. They're performing at Gananoque Legion and possibly Kingston Legion as well this year. So we're kind of spreading ourselves out.
Awesome.
Legion shows. But that's when I started. And then we also got invited to Elliott Lake. So they had a Scottish association there that put on this Burns night. And it was huge, absolutely huge. It was in this huge, big gymnasium, and they had, it was a big dance. I remember the haggis the first year was watery. Then they improved that as they went along.
Watery haggis.
There's a little plate, and that was our haggis. I'm like, I don't think so. But it was again a big dinner dance, and they had buses for us. So they took us up on a bus along with this like stage band that played, and so it was quite the shindig. And we had the pipe band was there, and so it was really a fun, and we got billeted overnight too.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was kind of really cool. You never knew who you were going to be staying with. It's not something we do now, but so two kids were going to this house, and someone else was taking another one single person, and so we were all spread out all over Elliott Lake.
What a production.
Yes. No, yeah. Anyway, that's what they did with us. I don't know what they did with the string band or the orchestra that played, but that's what happened with the dancers. We were billeted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I, of course, got billeted with my mother, though, so it wasn't quite as much fun for me compared to the other gang who were like, yeah, I got to hang out with mom. Looking back now, it's fun, but still, at that time when you're 13, you want to hang out with your friends. You don't want to hang out with your mother. Yeah. but it was was always a fun memory, and staying up late and
yeah.
All of us up in the rafters going, why? See, because they were playing all kinds of music. It wasn't Scottish music. Music, and then whatever tunes they came up with, and yeah. But that was just, it was a really neat memory, neat opportunity to go dance and do something fun.
Definitely, and then participate in the Scottish community in a different place, not too far away, but still connect through that stream of celebrating Scottish heritage, which is really what Burns Night is really all about.
You got it.
Yeah, cool. So I want to talk about your Burns Night. So when did you start your annual Burns Night?
The first night we had run a few Kayleys with my friend Rob Gardner. We had run a few Kayleys in town, and that was connected to the pipe band. And then I decided to do we decided to not just run a Kaylee, to actually run our first Burns night. And so we ran it jointly together, and that was in 1998. And you were born in 1999. So yeah, I just became, we found out a few weeks later that I was pregnant with you. And my friend that was teaching with me, Suzanne, she was pregnant with her daughter too, but she thought she had the flu. So that was so it's very memorable. That was our
Right.
first one, 1990. Well, I guess it was 1990. No, 1998 was our first one. 1999 was the second one where I was pregnant with you.
Okay.
So the second year. Yeah. First year we had 512 people. People kept showing up at the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was wild. 512 people in what's now the Quattro ballroom.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're pulling out tables, trying to set up tables just before to get the food, and we had just decided on meat pie, like a meat pie for dinner, to, because first time we didn't want to go all out and have,
Definitely.
but we had pre-booked many tickets that there would be some seating available, thinking a few people would show up. No, a lot of people showed up. So it was quite the hit. Yeah. And then we were around, I think after that, we were kind of like 480 for a long time. And then it dropped down, we just, as dancers aged out and, we didn't quite have the same numbers come back. We were at, 350 to 380 for many, many years.
Yeah.
And then gradually, as the studio's kind of a smaller little group. So I think we had 160 people there last year. So
Yeah.
this year we're doing a really tiny one, very elite one.
Yes.
Museum.
More details later.
Yeah. So it's Burns night at the museum.
Yes. The demographic that shows up to these things, is it mainly Scottish people that have Scottish background in their heritage? Do you notice that, or is it
usually there's some, but not necessarily. Like if they're into the Scottish community, like if they're a piper, a dancer, a drummer, they've had some influence somewhere along the way through cadets, possibly. Right. Then they like coming. We've got that whole group of cadets that came up, and we had them through the years. So even though they may not be involved anymore, they still love coming to the Burns night because it was always a fun event for them. for the week. No, it's like we've had Highland dancers that are French background and Italian background or half and half, and they just come in, and so we take anyone to a Burns night. Yes, anyone who wants to come. So we've tried opening up to, former dancers or just anyone that wants to come and knows about the poetry or just wants to come out for a fun night. Loves the pipes, that's love the pipes. I want to come. Yeah.
So who else have you brought in to partner with, bands, the cadets you mentioned?
Yes, the cadets. I've run Kayleys and Burns nights with the 49th. I think we only tried that once or twice. And then that's 49th pipe band. Just otherwise I brought in different entertainment. So we've had the Schreiers, we've had them perform, Julie Schreier and and Pierre Schreier's played for me. And then we had Rick Devey and Pat Stewart play. We've got Rick coming back to play this year. We've had the choir, Algoma Chamber Singers. They performed for us a number of years, and beautiful. It was just, it was very heartwarming. All those old traditional songs that I grew up with. So anyway, the older crowd knew the songs we were singing around, but the younger ones are going never heard this before. Sounds nice. I've had bands from out of town, like Celtic bands from out of town, come on occasion, but it's been a long time since I've done that. We kind of got a little method going that works, and we kind of did that for years. And then we tried we did a bit of a mini Highland Games for a couple years, and that was kind of fun. The kids really enjoyed that. But yeah, we're just doing a good old traditional Burns night this year.
Yep. I was gonna ask something about like all the Burns night that happened in the Sioux, or
At one point there were a lot of them. We had dancers. One year I remember we had dancers at the 49th Field Regiment put on one. There was ours, there was Legion's, there was the Elks Lodge in Elko Bay, and then Algoma Trad put one on. So we had, and then St. Jerome's Church.
Wow.
And that's where I reconnected with Ian Mackenzie. Yeah. St. Jerome's Church put one on for a number of years. So there was actually a lot of little tiny, and the Masonic Lodge always puts one on.
Wow.
So there are a lot, like a little bit smaller versions, but yeah, but there's more for their members, or maybe their wives come to that one at the Masonic, but they were putting it on. I don't know if they still are, but but I think so. But yeah, there was quite a few in the area.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, yeah. It's a busy week for Highland dancers and pipers.
Yeah.
Like even in Kingston, like we've got the Kingston Police Pipe Band is putting on a whiskey tasting with a Burns twist to it. So we're dancing at that one, and then the Gananoque Legion is having one in the afternoon on the Sunday, and then there's horse something regiment that's downtown Kingston. It's smaller, but we danced at that last year, and we're dancing with that again with the Princess Pipe Band. And then the Legion in Kingston we might be dancing at as well. We're just waiting on that one.
Wow.
Because the Celtic Kitchen Party is putting that one on, and we've really introduced them to this whole Celtic community that's outside of Tiernanog Pub. So it's and they're friends with the Legion, so I guess that's how the Legion now they're taking it on and trying to run it. I think at the Legion's how it's going. So
nice.
Dancing in that one too. So it's a lot. Like yeah. Plus like there's one at Queen's University. We're not involved in that one, but there's one at Queen's University, and then I think the Rob Roy Pipe Band is and dancers are putting one on too.
Wow.
And those are just the ones I know about, and that's Kingston.
Right.
I don't even know Kingston that well, so that's but we're getting in there. Our little studio is getting in there.
Yeah.
Getting some gigs.
Yeah, dancers, they make it.
Yeah, but that's the time of year, like it's nonstop. There's always a little, like I know when I lived in Toronto, I danced at some. Just myself with the guy I was dating, he was a piper, so I went and did a couple.
Just by yourself?
Yeah, just me. Did a
little solo show.
Yeah. So we did. Yeah, I don't even know what the groups were. Little clubs. Did one the Gaelic Society. I know we danced for the Gaelic. I don't know if it was a Burns night, but the Gaelic Society had put something on, and I danced at that one. Yeah. Very
cool.
Yeah.
So do you think people go to multiple, like within a week? Like if you're a diehard, do people go to like the whole weekend? They keep on bouncing to different Burns?
You know what? There's usually something different about each of them. Like the Legion one is more for Legion members, and it's usually an older crowd, and they want to just do a nice like social dance kind of thing after.
Right.
Like it's not Celtic music after. They have the Celtic influence of a mini band or a pipe band of some form, and the dancers and the Scottish country dancers, and then after that it's just a dance.
Right.
Whether they have live music or can now, I'm not sure. And then ours is more family oriented and a little livelier, and people are up doing the social dancing in Scotland, so it's a little bit more traditional in that aspect.
Right.
So there's all styles, and other ones would be just smaller and they're reading poetry.
Right.
So you're going to get every style that you can imagine. Like we looked at reading poetry, and then we just thought, we got kids. Like, they're not going to, it's for them to sit the address to the haggis, which is quite lengthy. And especially when they can't even understand most of what's being said. So I always have the translation as well in our program, so people can kind of read along and see what it actually is he's trying to say there.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of fun for people that are doing that.
Definitely.
Wherever you go, the Burns nights are going to always be different. It's like any event. The events are generally not. I don't think any 2 years of my Burns nights were ever the same.
Right.
Like there is something different.
Right.
At least in my world, I thought there was something different. It may not reflect it to the person attending, but sometimes we'd have live musicians, sometimes we'd have a choir, sometimes we'd have just a cadets pipe band and it was little, or sometimes it was larger and they were filling the floor, in those years of the big bands. Every year there's always something, and we do different dances every year. I try to change it up so it's not the same.
Yeah.
The same as Auld Lang Syne, which was a choreography I did for 1 year, and the kids wanted to do it again, and do it, and now it came the red dress dance. Everyone knows it's the red dress dance. Are you doing the red dress? And the little kids wanting to be able to be allowed to do it.
Definitely.
That was quite the thing.
It's a big thing in the studio, within the studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
What can we expect for this year's Burns night?
Well, it's going to be cozy, intimate Burns,
Mm-hmm.
so a little bit different from our past years. It's going to be at the Sioux Museum, which we're so excited about, and having our traditional dress. So people coming out in traditional dress or wearing a tartan plaid, trying to wear tartan of some form for their attire. We have the full range from very dressy, I'll be in a full-length gown, to someone that's hopefully not wearing jeans, but could be a little bit more casual in appearance. So we have the full range. We'll have the dancers performing, and I'm hoping the cadets will be allowed to perform as well, because there's new regulations that have come down for the cadets, so there can't be any alcohol being served or available while the cadets are in the room. So we're going to keep the bar closed until after they've been able to be there for an hour to an hour and a half, and then we'll let them go, and then we'll open up the bar, and so people can have a drink if they want with their meal. And so we have the dancers. We have Rick Deavy performing. He's a wonderful singer. He's been around town for a long time, as long as I've been around, but he's a great singer, and he's played a number of Celtic-ish bands in the Sioux, so he has a great voice, and he plays some great tunes and beautiful guitar. So he's going to be fun coming out again. And we're going to have a bit of a trivia night. So I'm trying to introduce some new things. There'll be videos of the scenes of Scotland going on around the room, so people can look and things and and there might even be a slideshow from past trips and different things. I'm going to try and pull some stuff together for that. So we'll have a little bit of an audio visual. We have Tyler Duncan, who's going to come and pipe for us. So he'll march us in for the address to the haggis. And of course, we have Ian McKenzie doing our address to the haggis once again. And he's always so wonderful to have part of the event. And that's pretty much, a lot of Scottish social dancing. So we'll be doing lots of social dancing. So we'll do the slosh, we'll do the Gay Gordons, we'll do the Canadian barn dance, and then St. Bernard's waltz, and then hope maybe a little bit of Scottish country dancing or some other social dances. So it'll be lively.
Definitely.
So I'll kicking off my high heels and putting on my running shoes, doing some dancing. But it'll be more interactive than in some other years, because we want the audience to be involved in the whole night. So it should be fun.
It'll be great. And lots of dancers, of course, lots of dancing.
Lots of dancing, lots of great music, lots of great food. So we've got our haggis coming up.
Yep.
So we'll have a ceremonial ball, and we'll have haggis for people to nibble on throughout the evening.
Awesome.
And other great little foods, a nice light luncheon this year instead of a big dinner. And so it'll be lots of dessert. So it'll be a little bit different, not having a full on roast beef dinner meal, but I think it'll be great because we're starting a little bit later, and but still I'm sure everyone will have their fill before the night's out.
Definitely. So where can everyone get tickets?
You can get tickets through our website, so www.dancemacleod.ca. You can also click our link that's set up through the Sioux Museum, and
Yep.
you can track us through there. So if knowing that it's the Robert Burns dinner at the Sioux Museum, you can track us through there and find our way
Definitely.
to the tickets. Yeah. So limited tickets this year, so get them early. We are going
Definitely.
to sell out 100%. Yeah.
Definitely. So how else can we support the dance studio in any way possible?
Come and see us for shows. We always have an end of year recital. We're always happy to do a dance out. We've always do things for the community as much as we can. The only thing, and we haven't been doing as many shows since COVID, so it'd be
Right.
great to get back out and get back involved in some of the activities throughout the community. We've done the multicultural event that was at Superior Heights
Yep.
in November, and that's been the only dance out we've had this year. So yeah, it's just a matter of come out, come try us. If you have a youngster that's interested in dancing, come out, try a class, see how you like it, and you know, come and be part of the Scottish community just by showing up for events.
Definitely. Yep. Thanks so much for listening to the Stories of Northern Life podcast. I can't believe that this episode marks 100 episodes. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, even if you listen to just this one or all of them. The Sioux Museum and I personally appreciate you so very much. The next several episodes on the podcast will be reposts of previous episodes that we just loved, and sure you will too. If you are new to the podcast, I encourage you to use the holidays to go back and listen to previous episodes. You definitely have lots to choose from. And even if you've been here for a while, maybe there's some that are worth a re-listen. And don't worry, season 2 is coming with a new feel and the same determination to share our history and capture stories of the North. So stay tuned. Be sure to follow the Sioux Museum on socials at Sioux Museum, SAULT Museum, to find the most up-to-date information on what we're posting and the newest episode coming out. Ciao for now, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday.